Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Deltana SS35B US32D. This is a ball bearing hinge. I have them removed from the packaging. First of all, they're priced and sold per hinge. There happens to be 2 in a box. If you were to ship, if you were to order, 9, one box is going to have 1 hinge in it. So you can buy it in either odd or even quantities. Sometimes hinges are packed 3 in a box. Sometimes, mostly they are, or 2 in a box, or 1 in a box. I've supplied 8x8 hinges in the past, and they were 1 in a box. I've supplied 5x12 hinges in the past, and there were 3 in a box on those. So it's, it's not per box, because per box always changes. But that's what the hinge looks like. Now, why might you be looking at this? Well, you might have an application where you want stainless steel. And this hinge is stainless steel. Marginally magnetic inside of there, as you can see. And that's because those ball bearings, well, actually, no. That's probably because the pin itself, the pin should be stainless. You know what I bet it is? There's no ball bearing there, but it's magnetic. Stainless steel does exhibit magnetic properties once it's been worked and machined, and most definitely the machine that has created that knuckle has put a lot of work into it. Okay, so that's probably where that's coming from. And you might be looking at this because you want a hinge made of stainless steel. You don't want it steel-based. You don't want it brass-based. You want it stainless. You might have an application where you know that hinges and hardware will rust, a coastal application. Here in southern Florida, it's just, par for the course. Anything outside will rust eventually. The more salt in the environment, the more aggravated it will happen. The faster pace it will occur at. So this is very possibly why you're looking at this. You might also be looking at it because stainless steel is just the term that you have in your head. Independent of its base material, you might need a stainless steel look, but not necessarily a stainless base material. The reason that we bring that up is because a stainless base material in a hinge is always going to be more expensive than a steel-based hinge. So if you're looking for a stainless look, a silver chrome type look, you'll look for satin chrome or maybe satin nickel over steel. Okay, you might also be looking for a match. No other hardware, base material, and finish combination will match a stainless base material with a brushed finish. If that's what you're matching, you'll probably be looking at this, independent of the fact that it's made of stainless or not. You're just looking for that most perfect match as possible. So that's why you might be looking at this. Okay. Let's talk about this hinge a little bit more and where you're going to use it. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So where you will likely use this hinge could be in a variety of applications. The 3.5 inch tall hinge would be appropriate for 1 3/8 thick doors. You could be using this in an exterior environment in a gate application. I have people that use these hinges for all sorts of different things. Surface mounting it onto something and having, something move or rotate, or maybe some sort of a chest that's going to move or rotate, depending on whether or not that's going to work for your application. But when it comes to doors, you can install it on really any thickness door, but if it's an 1 3/8 thick door, 3.5 is the right size. 4 is a little bit too large. And then there's every other way that you could use it. Okay, you could have a fence post and a fence. You could have something at a marina and you just need some stainless hinges. You might be building docks that you put in the spring and you take out in the fall, and you need some hinges to hinge a couple of pieces together. Wherever. It's a hinge, so we're assuming that you're using it on doors. The fact that it's ball bearing now, that is an idea that's important to consider. You can order these in plain bearing. That means there are no bearing packets. Under the load of what it's carrying, those bearings are really going to come into play to keeping the door moving as freely as possible. If there's a door closer installed, allowing the door closer to do its job most efficiently because it has ball bearings. If it's a heavier door, you're certainly going to want ball bearings, or if it's a door with higher traffic. If this was plain bearing, just imagine these two intersections here. That's just metal on metal every single time. Sooner or later, probably later if it's low volume use, you will notice a wear pattern. I have literally seen plain bearing hinges worn so much because of the use that the latch bolt will no longer fit into the hole of the strike plate because the door is now hanging that much further from where it used to. That gap between the top of the door and the underside of the header, it's to be 1/8 of an inch. Now it's 5/16 because that door literally has sunk because those knuckles have ground themselves to the point where there's just powderized metal that's there. I would suggest always using ball bearing hinges because it is proven to me, at least, the long-term desirability of the higher caliber hinge when it comes to life expectancy is worth the investment, provided that there's not a substantial cost difference between plain bearing and ball bearing, and you have a door that's extremely low volume. In that sort of scenario, I would consider a plain bearing hinge. If you have a closer, use a ball bearing hinge or a frictionless, a friction-reduced platform. Ball bearing, concealed bearing, lubricated bearing, whatever it might be. It might be metal ball bearings. It might be high-tech nylon that's between those joints. It could be concealed pintle pin that's sitting on a bearing raceway as well. Could be lots of ways. But if it's a closer, you'll want something. And I have noticed, and I'll show you in a moment, that the stock image we have there is not a ball bearing hinge, but here's the actual hinge itself, and I'll show you some other items. This is going to include fasteners. You will get all wood screws and all machine screws when you order one of these hinges. So you don't have to worry about that. I believe these are going to be 1032. I believe they're 1032, would be my guess. And then typical, probably number 8 wood screws would be my guess on that. Okay, are they stainless? They are. There you go. Now I happen to have another hinge here with part of its pin projecting out. That's what's called, that pin and that knurled surface that's there, that is what is called a non-rising pin. What will happen, and surely you've noticed it, maybe you haven't noticed it, but it's there. Over time, as that door is open and closed hundreds, thousands of times, that pin has a tendency to creep up. You'll see it. And that's because it's like the pin is being extruded out of the hinge knuckles. Well, with that knurling on that pin that's there, that substantially reduces those forces and pressure of the hinge opening and closing and shooting that pin up over time. So that's a nice feature of this Deltana hinge, that heavily knurled pin, making it a non-rising pin. There's non-rising pin, which is what I just said. You can still drive that pin out through that access hole. If you inserted the right size center punch, you'll be able to tap that pin out. And you probably will when you're hanging the door because you want to separate the door leaf and the frame leaf, and then bring the door to the frame and tap the pins down with your mallet. But many people simply do not have a, especially an import company like Deltana, they're not thinking of it being a non-rising pin, which over time is an advantage. They don't mention it either, but it's a hallmark of the design that is an unspoken or an unpublished feature and benefit. Otherwise, that pin could just be smooth.
My apologies.
They're listening. Otherwise, that pin could be smooth and would eventually kind of creep out, is the bottom line. Creep up, I should say. Okay, let's switch to the screen view. Let's look at our supporting information. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here is the item that we are indeed looking at, and let's look at the images that we have posted down below. Stainless steel hinges, that's your part number. That's the hinge, showing you the 2 bearing packets. Standard weight hinges have 2 bearing packets. There are 3 classifications of hinges in terms of the type of hinge they are when it comes to the leaf thickness. And those are segregated by the terminology residential weight, standard weight, and heavy weight. A residential weight is about 96 thousandths. A standard weight, which is what this hinge is about 123 thousandths. And I have my caliper on the hinge leaf, and my caliper tells me 0.115. So it's 115 thousandths, a little light on 123 thousandths. Standard weight would be likely about 180 thousandths, but they don't make standard weight. And, pardon me, they don't make heavyweight is what I meant to say. About 180 thousandths. They don't make heavyweights in such small hinges. This is... All right, this picture is showing us a top view. If this is the vertical axis of pivoting, the center line right here.
I gotta get your key.
And let's indicate that. Okay. That's our center point. Right there. Sorry, it's looks a little awful. You'll see that there is a bend on the hinge leaves here. Okay? That's what's called the swag. It's the bend on the hinge leaf that determines the type of hinge it is. This is a full mortise hinge, and it's because of that feature that you have right here on that bend. The back side of the hinge, another hallmark of this hinge is that which is not mentioned, is that the back side of the hinge is finished as well. Frankly, is to the same standard that the front side is finished. There's basically only, I don't know how many other hinge manufacturers publish that they do that. I know of only one. Now, I don't know if that's standard across all of their hinges, but nonetheless. A little close-up of the assembly of the barrel of the knuckle. That's what's called a 2-ball bearing hinge, and it's a 5-knuckle hinge. I should have mentioned that. This is a 5-knuckle hinge. Okay. Close-up view, the screw package, and then a real close-up view. That's what the grain structure and the brushing looks like on this stainless hinge. Okay. Now, the information in the extended description that's here, they say it's a non-removable pin. That's incorrect. I'm going to correct that to non-rising pin. There's nothing non-removable about this. And what I'm driving at with this is non-removable would be a security feature that would all but prevent the hinge pin from being driven out. This does not have such a security feature, so by the time you're seeing this, this will be titled non-rising pin. Made of stainless, 119 thousandths. We measured that earlier. Came in a little shy on that. Square corner, okay, rather than radiused quarter or 5/8. 2-ball bearings per hinge. Prices per hinge. Here's the template. Let's click on that. Basically just a technical drawing of what we see here. 3.5 by 3.5. Location of the screw holes, if you're not sure if that's going to work for your application. Regarding the location of those holes, compare it before you go replacing it. It would be very unlikely that your holes are in any other location other than this. Okay. Now, 3.5 is an important dimension to think about as well as the width. And what I'm driving at there is you might need a hinge, or a hinge might be better suited that has a different width. Maybe 3 inch is a better dimension. Maybe you need 5 inch in the width. And basically, without going into that information too intensely, the formula to derive the width of the hinge your application calls for is this: dt minus hb parentheses times 2 minus I minus C. dt is door thickness. How thick is your door? HB is hinge back set. The amount of the door here that you do not mortise is hinge back set. Generally a 1/4 inch. Can be something else, but it's generally a 1/4 inch. Take those two dimensions and multiply them by 2. So let's say 1 3/8 minus 1/4 inch is 1 1/8 times 2 is 2 1/4. Minus I minus C. Okay. So what is... Oops. Here's our frame, believe it or not. Okay, so I is the dimension from the face of the frame to the face of the door. Generally going to be a very small value. If it's not 0, it will be something less than 100 thousandths. It'll be 3/32 or some small number. Or it could be any number. It could be 1 inch. It could be 2 inch. It could be 7 inch. Whatever it is. Subtract I from that number. Okay. Minus your clearance. And the clearance is going to be, when this door gets opened to 180 degrees, whoopsie. What is the dimension between here? And I've realized as I'm saying this out loud, I said subtraction, minus, it should be plus, forgive me. So let's back up. We know that we've got 2 1/4 because of door thickness and hinge backset, times 2. 1 3/8 minus 1/4 inch times 2 is 2 1/4. Plus your inset, which is either 0 or something small or something big. Plus your clearance, which could be anything. What do you need here? What's projecting? Is there chair rail, wainscoting, some added feature to the door or frame? You'll add those values. So in this instance, where there is no clearance required at all, we're going to, and this dimension is very tiny. Let's just say it's 3/32. You're going to basically get to 2 3/8 and then plus 0 because you don't need anything over here. You then go to the next largest commercially available size. We're at about 2 3/8, so the next size available is 3 inch. So a better hinge for your application is a 3 inch wide hinge, because that will allow the barrel of the hinge, I drew that awful, okay, to be as close to the face of the door as possible. You use this same formula to determine anything. Now let's say that the clearance that you required was 2 inch. So now 2 1/4 plus 1/8 at the most, plus 2 inch. Well, now you're at 4 3/8. Okay, a 3.5 inch wide hinge is not going to work. 2 inch clearance could be that you have a 1 inch thick trim on both the door and the frame. And you now get the picture. You could also have an extremely thick wall. Let's say that this is 16 inch and your door is here. It's centered in that 16 inch. Well, that hinge has got to get itself all the way out here. So that's where your inset, that's I. It could be anything. Now there's the formula. Sorry about that before. I started scratching my head when I was doing my math. Anyway, important side note on the calculation of width. Now, below this video here is a link to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Deltana products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog here. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. The name Deltana is synonymous with good quality, imported builder's hardware. There would be no real hesitation to using their products, perhaps as a first choice, or perhaps as a second choice. Deltana is to fit into your, meeting your short-term goals wherever they're going to fit. If you like their hinge, if you like their product line, their pricing, the fact that they're imported, great. It's all there for you to review. They're a good vendor of ours. They are prompt, reliable, predictable folks. They send confirmations. They send tracking numbers. They answer the phone. They are able to handle, where's my stuff? How much of the stuff do you have? What's the cost of that stuff? So good, easy. They keep it simple. The KISS method is what they do, and for that, to them, I appreciate them very much. Any questions on the Deltana SS35B 32D stainless steel ball bearing hinge or any other Deltana product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.